Welcome back. In the last video, we discussed about social groups, its definitions, its importance, and its characteristics. Now, in this video, we are going to discuss about types of groups and its typologies. Types of groups. We have discussed we discussed that human groups are the fundamental process of sociological analysis. Though sociologists have classified groups in different way, certain kinds of group behavior are universally recognized by all as important. For example, groups, crowds, families, institutions, associations, and communities. Yet, these are not considered as different types of groups, but they have special relation to one another. Also, they occupy a particular place in the social structure of a society in terms of their nature and purpose. We can note the relationship and their place in the following typology. Let us briefly know what typology would mean. Typology refers to the concept of rationality. By rationality, we mean that man's actions should make sense in terms of goals. When we as individuals recognize and accept the same goals, for example, we say that criminal or a thief is irrational or not rational. But sociologically speaking, according to Karl Mahem, rationality is the overall behavior of a man and the way in which he acts in relation to other acts. In this way, we can conceive of behavior as falling into three categories, that is irrational, non rational, and rational. Irrational behavior refers to those situations in which man loses control over his actions. It results in a haphazard, disordered, and unorganized behavior. However, this type of behavior is rare. Man is slowly Man is solely responsible for organizing and patterning his behavior. These categories, these categories such as the rational and non-rational behavior is the primary concern of sociologists. Social groups have been classified in a variety of ways by different sociologists. In this classification of human behavior groups, one of the fundamental distinction is that between small and intimate groups on one hand and large and impersonal groups on the other. The small and intimate groups are categorized by what sociologists call primary relations, while others that in these large and impersonal groups exhibit predominating secondary relations. Dwight Sampson has classified groups into three types on the basis of structure such as involuntary, voluntary, and delegate groups. An involuntary group is that to which man has no choice, which is based on kinship such as family, tribe, or clan. A voluntary group is one which a man joins of his volition or wishes. At many times, he is free to withdraw his membership from this group. A delegate group is one to which a man joins as a representative of a number of people either elected or nominated by them. Example, parliament or assembly is a delegate group. According to P.S. Surkin, an American sociologist, has divided groups into two major groups, the vertical and the horizontal. Vertical group includes persons of different strata or statuses, but the horizontal group includes persons of same status. A nation, for instance, is a vertical group, while a class represents horizontal grouping. FH findings, FH Giddings classified groups into genetic and congregate. The genetic group is the family in which a man is born involuntarily. The congregate group is a voluntary group to which he joins voluntarily. George Hassan has classified groups into four types on the basis of their relations to other groups. They are unsocial, pseudo-social, antisocial, and pro-social groups. You may be listening this first time, but I am repeating what George Hassan classified into four types. They are unsocial, pseudo-social, antisocial, and pro-social groups. An unsocial group. is one which largely lives to itself and for itself, does not participate in the larger society of which it is a part. It does not mix up with other groups and remains aloof from them. But it never goes against the interest of a larger group. The next one is the pseudo social group. A pseudo social group which participates in a larger group of which it is a part, but mainly for its own gain and not for the greater good. And next comes one more third group, which is third type of group, which is an anti-social group, which acts against the interest of the larger group, of which it is a part. And the fourth type of group is a pro-social group. It is the reverse of the anti-social group. It works for the larger interest of the society, of which it is a part. Then comes with one more author we discussed, C.H. Cooley. He classified groups on the basis of kind of contact into primary and secondary groups. In primary group, there is a face-to-face, close and intimate relationship among the members, such as in the family. But in a secondary group, the relationship among the members are indirect, impersonal, and superficial, such as the political party, a city, and trade union, etc. Primary group, their characteristics and function. Again, Charles Cooley first identified primary relationships as that form of interaction between individuals which is characterized by intimate, face to face association and cooperation. He called such relations primary because they are basic and universal to all human societies. There is no society without some marked area of primary contact between its members. Cooley used the term primary groups to mean a social group characterized by face to face associationship, mutual aid, and companionship. By primary groups, Cooley meant the intimate, personal, face to face groups in which we find our companions and comrades as members of our family and our daily associate. These are the people who, with whom we enjoy the more intimate kinds of social relations. The primary group can be referred to as V groups. Cooley explained that a primary group involves the sort of sympathy and mutual identification for which V is a natural expression. Example for primary groups: family, neighborhood, children's playground, local brotherhood, friends club, peer group, etc. Characteristics of primary group. A primary group have following characteristics. The primary groups are characterized by close and intimate relationship. There exists a face-to-face relationship among the members. In primary groups, everyone knows everyone else, one's name and the fame, one's status, wealth, occupation, level of education, etc. Close contact between Close contact between them increases intimacy among the members. Face-to-face relations are commonly observed in a small groups like family, children's play group, neighborhood, and so on. Primary groups are smaller in size. Effective participation of a member is possible only when the group is not of a small size. Other factors being equal, the smaller the group, the more intimate it is. Face to face relation can be found only when members reside in a particular area more or less permanently. Seeing and talking with each other facilitates the exchanging of ideas, opinions, and sentiments. Physical proximity provides an opportunity for the very development of the primary groups. A primary group is relatively a permanent group, other things being equal. The longer the group remaining together, the more numerous and deeper are the contacts between its members. Social ties deepen in time. Like normally in the gated communities, two strange families will come together, but over a period of time, for the long staying together, they develop a lot of bond, they become a family friends. The members of a primary group must have more or less the same background. There must be some approximation in their levels of experience. Each must have something to contribute, to give as well as to take. Members of the primary group subordinate their personal interest to the interest of the group. The common interest of the group is strong enough to control individual interest. The commonness of interest provides mental pleasure and satisfaction to the members. The shared interest of the group also hold them together. The interest which is shared acquires a new significance, a new emphasis, a new valuation. It has a breadth of support. The group is relatively durable because of these shared interests. The primary group sustain the interest of living itself. Communication in the primary group is a very quick and effective. Direct or face to face contact helps easy communication between the members. A primary group is neither deliberately created nor it is specialized in character. It has come into being for the pursuit of any particular interest of the group people. Direct cooperation exists in the primary group. Members work directly and in cooperation with each other to achieve their common interest. They do not act independently nor even interdependently, but all participate in the same process. Let's understand the functions of primary group. One of the most important functions of primary group is to train and socialize the individual. Primary groups such as the family and the peer group are very significant in developing and controlling the individual's behavior. According to Charles Cooley, primary groups are fundamental in forming the social nature and ideals of the individuals. Members of a primary group express themselves as we, involves sympathy, mutual identification. The group functions as a place where an individual can express his deepest feelings to others, who will also listen and release emotions of all kinds. Primary groups provide security and protection for the individual in society. In other words, primary groups provide strong support and sustenance to the individual. Because of these functions, sociologists consider the concept of primary groups as the most significant. Primary groups are the basis for social cohesion and control. They are the basic units of strengthening the society. To understand or to make you a little bit know your understanding on this particular part, I have a small question for you. You can do that, go back and listen to this video again, and you can ask how to define a primary group. So, just define a primary group. Now, we are now I am going to explain secondary groups and their characteristics and importance. A secondary group is large and it is created for performing specific functions. It usually serves clear defined purposes. The chief purpose of the secondary group is to meet specific needs or to serve a particular function. The functions of the group are established to achieve group goals, and the group dictates different types of expected relationships among its members. For example, a labor union, a trade association, and an army. An understanding of the modern industrial society requires an understanding of the secondary groups. The secondary groups are almost the opposite of primary groups. The social groups, other than those of primary groups, are more may be termed as secondary groups. They are residual category. They are often called special interest groups. McIver and Page refer them as great associations. They are of the opinion that secondary groups have become almost inevitable today. Their appearance is mainly due to the growing cultural complexity. Primary groups are found predominantly in societies where life is relatively simple. With the expansion in the population and territory of a society, however, interests become diversified and other types of relationships, which can be called secondary or impersonal, become necessary. Interests become differentiated. The service of expert is required, techniques are elaborated, and average number has neither the time nor the energy nor the skill to attend them. The new range of interest demands a complex organization. The members are numerous and too scattered to conduct their business through face to face relationships. Specially selected person must act on behalf of all and hence arises a hierarchy of officials called bureaucracy. These features characterize the rise of a modern state, the great corporation, the large church, the factory, the army, the labor union, a university, a nationwide political party, and so on. These are secondary groups. Let's understand the meaning of secondary group. Let's understand through some of the authors. So Ogburn and Nimkov says that group which provide experiences lacking in intimacy can be called secondary groups. According to Frank D. Watson, the secondary group is larger and more formal, is specialized and direct in its contact, relies more for unity and continues upon the stability of social organization than does the primary group. Now we'll understand the characteristics of secondary groups. Secondary groups are characterized by indirect, impersonal, contractual, and non inclusive relations. Relations are indirect because secondary groups are bigger in size and the members may stay together. Relations are contractual in the sense they are oriented towards certain interests or desires. Relations are non inclusive because they are partial and they have limited range. These kinds of relations among people can be found in big factories, business corporations, government offices, banks, universities, political parties, trade unions, international associations, etc. Secondary groups are relatively larger in size. City, nation, political parties, trade union, corporations, international associations such as the Rotary Club, Lions Club, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, Society of Jesus, etc. are example for bigger in size. They may have thousands and lakhs of members. There may not be any limit to their membership in the case of some secondary groups. Membership in the case of secondary groups is mainly voluntary. Individuals are at liberty to join or to go away from the groups. For example, they are at liberty to join political parties, international associations like Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, business corporations, and so on. However, there are some secondary groups like the state whose membership is also almost involuntary. Secondary groups are not characterized by the physical proximity. Many secondary groups Many secondary groups are not limited to any definite area. There are some secondary groups like the Rotary Club and Lions Club which are almost international in character. The members of such groups are scattered over a vast area. Specific ends or interest. Secondary groups are formed for the realization of some specific interest or ends. They are called special interest groups. Members are interested in the groups because they have some specific ends to aim at. Contacts and communication in the case of secondary groups are almost indirect. Communication may not be quick and effective even. Impersonal nature of social relationship in secondary groups is both the cause and the effect of indirect communication. Formal means of social control such as law, legislation, police, court, etc. are made use of to control the behavior of members. The behavior of the member is largely influenced and controlled by public opinion, propaganda, rule of law, and political ideologies. Secondary group has a formal structure. A formal authority is set up with designated power and a clear cut division of labor, in which the function of each specified in relation to the function of all. Secondary groups are mostly organized groups. Different status and roles that members assume are specified. Distinctions based on caste, color, religion or region, class, language, etc. are less rigid and there is a greater tolerance towards other people and groups. Importance of secondary groups. The secondary groups are playing a very important role in modern civilized and industrialized society. For a long time, the primary groups could not meet the essential requirement of people. Due to the growth of cities and population, complexity of social structure, and differentiation of interest, social groups have become a necessity. Particularly, the process of industrialization and urbanization has added to the unprecedented expansion and growth of society. As a result, the simple face to face groups could no longer serve the basic needs of the people. Secondary groups have replaced the earlier primary group in many fields. The Industrial Revolution, the modern science and technology, on one hand, the new political and religious outlook and ideologies on the other, have changed the very character of modern society. There have been a radical change in attitudes and outlook, interest and taste, needs and necessities, ideas and ideologies of the people. Secondary groups are innumerable, kind have come into being in order to cater to the needs and demands of the modern society. Not only the number, but even the variety of secondary groups are increasing. People are becoming more and more dependent on these groups now. Our life in is our life is today to a great extent lived and controlled by large number of secondary groups. Our social setup is such that we are often inevitably dragged in one kind of secondary group or another. For example, a laborer working in a factory is forced to join a trade union whether he wants it or not. It becomes almost a necessity for the laborer to join one union or the other to protect his rights and fulfill his interests. Secondary groups have entered almost all fields: political, economic, commercial, industrial, religious, educational, cultural, etc. More than primary group, the secondary groups are dominating our life. Much of our activities and achievements are carried on through secondary groups. They provide opportunity for us to develop our faculties and express our talents. They deliberate and limit our energy. Much of our attitudes and outlook, ideas and ideologies are shaped and molded by them. The modern civilized life is such that men have started establishing primary groups within the border of secondary groups. Small cliques, gangs, unions consisting of few may be found in form of informal group within the larger secondary group. Men have started showing their loyalties toward the larger groups. The spirit of sacrifice, the spirit of sacrifice, helpfulness, service, cooperation, dedication towards the larger group, the spirit which are considered to be characteristic qualities of primary group and are often found to a very great extent in secondary groups. Commitment to a political party or religious association, loyalty to nation, sense of duty towards society, identification with a trade union, allegiance to an army, etc., are qualities which are found commonly in many secondary groups. Secondary group is characterized by secondary relations. A secondary relation is formal, impersonal, non emotional, and specialized. Secondary group is so large that all its members could not possibly know each other personally. The duration of secondary group may be, but in personal relations of its member may be for a short time. One is not corrected within the group, other person as person but as a functionary who is performing a role. This is people in secondary group interact with one another for specific and limited purposes. Interaction involves only limited individual personalities and personal qualities are not considered important. But performance of role is taken as the essential characteristic of the secondary group. The relationships are less intimate and sentimental and does not involve different roles and interests of each participant in the relationship. For example, the relationship between a bus driver and passenger is secondary. Each have a specific role to perform. Their personal interests or roles do not enter the relationship. Secondary relations are ordinarily utilitarian. People maintain them in order to get things done or to reach a desired end. A police officer and his citizen relationship is purely secondary. They interact with one another in order to achieve particular ends, and both of them are interested in one another as role players in social organization. Members associate directly but briefly, and the communication is restricted and specific. There is no free communication of personal attitudes and feelings which would reflect the individual's total personality. A secondary relationship is a contractual relationship which is defined very clearly between members of specific purposes and oriented towards a particular goal. The members of a secondary group are subordinated to the requirements and the functions of the group. While little intimacy is in his while little intimacy in his relationship with others, the individual disregards his personal interest and performs specified functions within the group. An individual perform in playing a role is more important than his personal qualities in social secondary groups. Sentiment and motives do not count, and members are not interested in each other as individuals. In short, contractual relationship rest on national level, and the interest actually lies in achieving the goals. Secondary groups such as clubs and trade unions have interpersonal relationships which are often formalized and established by a written code of conduct. These groups are judged by the efficiency with which they meet the particular needs of the group. They are goal oriented in contrast to a primary group. To be clear, no organization group can depend exclusively on secondary relations among its members. Whether it is labor union or an army, a religious congregation or a university, there must be some loyalty and devotion among its members towards the group as a whole. The group to a certain extent demands to observe the expected pattern of behavior to make its structure. A group must have some basic allegiance and the identity of members make possible for the normative integration. Without this, the secondary contact between the individual results in a chaos, and it is in the name of the collectively and on basis of honesty, fairness, and courtesy these rules are supported. These rules are supported. However, we cannot be expect attitudes of loyalty and identification to develop automatically. They are developed in the process of communication from one individual to another, and specifically the kind of communication that occurs in intimate personal relations. For this reason, we find that primary groups are essential to the existence of secondary groups. It is in the primary group the individual acquires durable personal relations which are renewed and redefined in secondary groups. That is why the secondary group, no matter how big and impersonal, must be associated with the primary groups. Its members not only associated in primary groups but also in secondary contacts, and two contexts must be structurally integrated. Hence, we find that every primary group consists of elements present in the formal organization, but also every secondary group consists of elements present in primary association. Sometimes, not only do the primary and secondary relations vary among social group, but also different members of same group develop varying degrees of in personal involvement and identification with it. For example, a business organization commands little feeling of personal identification from some of its members, while other members become so involved that they can even sacrifice their family relations and place them secondary to those of the business groups. Whether group is whether a group is primary or secondary, it depends upon which member's viewpoint is considered. Both the concepts are useful because they describe important differences in behavior. In every way, the secondary group attempts to overcome the sense of impersonality while retaining the efficiency that a formal organization gives. These organizations, though occasionally fail, they represent a form of social organization fundamental to the modern society. Now we'll understand the Gemshaft and Gelshaft. These groups are somewhat similar to the concept of primary and secondary group. The concept of Gemshaft and Gelshaft was developed by German sociologist Mr. Ferdinand Tönnies. These two terms of refer- these two terms refer to a community and a society. The Gemeinschaft is a social system in which most relationships are personal or traditional, even representing both. A good example is a community held together by intimate and personal relationship. For example, primary relationships are found in family or kin group or in neighborhood. Many more often, people simply carry out a network or customary obligation to one another, and traditional pattern of behavior is formed and is accepted by the community. There is little chance for improving their social position. Life is monotonous, but community is united with a feeling or sentiment between the members, and loneliness is rare in the community of lifelong neighbors. In Gesellschaft, traditional society is replaced by contractual relations. Traditional personal attachment is absent. The relationship between people determined by the racial agreement of interest. Kinship relation is not maintained because people move about and live among strangers. Commonly accepted codes of behavior are largely replaced by formal and impersonal relations. And Gesellschaft flourishes in the metropolitan city. Formal and informal groups. Some social groups are formally organized. They are regulated under a system of norms and standard of behavior of some regard are sometimes regulated by law and order to organize to realize a specific goal. For example, political parties, business firms, governmental agencies, hospitals, prisons, armies, and universities are all large formal organizations. Members who participate in the formal organization must adhere to the rules of the command, codified rights and obligations. Recruitment is based on specialized training and positions and are occupied by qualified personnel. Therefore, it is an agree. Therefore, it is an arrangement in which the activities of some people are systematically planned by other people who have authority over them to achieve a specific goal. To achieve a special goal. The pattern sets of relationship between the members are guided by regulated norms, and the organization consists of highly specialized role. The members are culturally heterogeneous. The goals of the organization are considered highly important. Example, state bureaucracies, industrial, industrial enterprises, and military officers. Many informal structures develop in addition to the formal structures. Informal structures are unconsciously created with no specific goals. They have no established norms and legal rules that apply to them. Rather, they are maintained by unwritten rules and other undertaking that members must keep in mind in order to govern themselves. Families, friendship groups are typical informal groups. In groups and out groups. This concept was developed by W.G. Summer, made a division of groups into in group and out group. The groups in which individual identify himself as in group, such as his family, tribe, college, occupation, etc. All other groups to which he does not belong are his out groups. Every group has its own boundaries to distinguish members from non-members. Sometimes these boundaries are clearly defined and formal. In such cases, the boundary is maintained by symbols such as badges, membership cards, etc. For example, a police department, labor union, and family, as rules are clearly defined in these groups. Members in these groups tend to develop a strong sense of we feeling among them, and tend to regard their own group as in group, which is very special and superior to other groups. Whereas any outgroup to which other person belong is regarded as less worthy and may be viewed with hostility. Members of in-group are likely to share certain sentiments, feelings, and enjoy the same type of activity. For example, people who belong to the same social class, caste, religion, people having same political views, and the people who are interested in the same type of sports and music are all in groups. Members of outgroups may share many of the same cultural traits but do not share whatever is necessary for the in-group. In advanced society, we find that individuals belong to a member belong to a number of groups so that their in-group and out-group relationship may overlap. Members of senior class treat freshers as an out-group, but in the stadium, both unite as in-group, cheering for the same team. Similarly, these have an in-group relation as members of the same religious group may be in different political parties. Reference group. There are groups which are important to us as models. Even though we ourselves may not be a part of the group, reference group denotes a kind of social relationship. Reference group therefore is a category of social action with whom an individual compares and contrasts himself, his behavior, his goals, and his sentiments. From this comparison, much of his image develops. Sometimes the individual may need the opinion of high society or improve his status. At times, the reference and the in group may be same. When the teenagers give more importance to the opinions of gang rather than those of his or her teachers, Likewise, an outgroup serves as in-group. The prisoner of war, the prisoner of war, wear dress similar to that of their enemies in order to impress them. Further, a reference group may be also a negative group. Therefore, a reference group is any group whose values and norms are adopted by us. An individual may select particular group whose approval or disapproval he or she especially desires. Horizontal and vertical groups. Some social groups are composed of persons who belong to some social class, that is, who are given relatively similar treatment because they have economic and social attributes which are ranked similarly in the prestige hierarchy of the society. These are called horizontal groups. A group in which members have equal status and social prestige in terms of similar incomes, such as labor union, upper and lower division clerks in a horizontal group, and groups in which members are from different social classes, different income levels, and whose social prestige varies widely are called as vertical groups. For example, industrial union, whose members have different grades, democratic and republic parties, members of any voluntary association are vertical groups. Thus, we have a number of criteria which has been applied in the classification of social groups. Groups exist on the basis of emotional or intellectual character of the members. It signifies personal or impersonal nature of relations, the size of the group, and its duration. Some of these factors receive more attention than others. It has been emphasized on the size of the group from different points of view. Simmel has, Simmel has examined the relationship between number of members and structure of the group. He has even showed how the nature of relationship changed due to the increase in population in cities. Durkheim explained the division of labor in terms of organic solidarity with the emergence of modern society based on specialization of work. Hobhouse explained in terms of social development of the society, which creates major problems in establishing and maintaining social solidarity in the large groups. It is impossible to have intimate relationship or primary groups. G.C. Hornman, in his study of primary groups, made clear that the study of small groups is very essential to the study of society. It is possible to approach a society through small groups. Cooley has mentioned that it is primary group which determines the social nature and the ideas of individual. They are the main sources from which social institutions emerge. To summarize, we learned different types of groups, and also we learned about typologies of group, then the primary groups and secondary groups, then we understood their characteristics and functions of primary group and secondary group, and importance of primary group and secondary group, and also we could able to uh, note the different types of group. One is gym shaft and jail shaft, formal and informal groups, in groups and out groups, reference groups, horizontal and vertical groups. Thank you so much.